What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's weekend roundup. We're going to begin with the Euros. The semifinals are set. It is your four favorites headed into the quarterfinals, at least the teams I would consider the four best in this tournament so far. But they did not take the easy road to get to the semifinals. These quarterfinals were all really, really good. Of course, headlined by England's late rally to beat Spain in extra time. Spain thoroughly dominated this game. England had no business winning, but they get the late equalizer, and then Georgia Stanway unloads in extra time for the win. Every team that wins a major tournament has a game like this where they just survive somehow, and then you forget about it once they've actually, made the final, lifted the trophy, whatever it might be. This could very well be England's. And now you've seen England blow away opponents with their attack, grind out one of those 1-0 wins that they're the better team, they have the better chances, but the offense just isn't really clicking. That opener against Belgium. And now you've seen them snatch victory from what should have been defeat. You got to be able to problem solve in all these kind of different situations. Their ceiling remains higher than anybody else's in this tournament. The question is, can they actually get close to reaching that ceiling again? Because Northern Ireland game, there's just not too much to take away from it. Didn't come close against Austria, didn't come close against Spain. A Spain team, of course, without their best two attackers. I am just captivated to see what happens next with this England team. That's the one you had to survive. And now they've given themselves a chance, and they can blow you away offensively at any given point in time, which is the questions with the men's team right now. Can they actually put all this offensive talent to use? We've seen the English women do it. The question is, can they actually do it again? Because you're not going to get out of that kind of situation every time you put yourself into it. They survived it once. Credit to them. Don't want to put yourself there again. Germany, to me, has been the best team in the tournament so far. They get their second goal late to seal the win against Austria. Not their best performance by any means. Austria is just incredibly difficult to play against. But they get the goal, hold on, add the second at the very end. That was the least competitive of the four quarterfinals, right? Because then you've got Sweden winning at the death against Belgium, despite Nikki Everard's heroics to keep the Belgians in the game. It was an assault on her goal. She was spectacular. And then France, Netherlands, extra time. France get the penalty, convert to win a game in which, again, you look at the number of shots. I mean, it was absolutely dominant. But they couldn't get the goal. They finally do. So now we have England, Sweden, Tuesday in the first semifinal. Germany, France, Wednesday in the second. These are your four best teams. Like I said, the four teams that were supposed to go through just didn't look the way you thought it would. Starting with England and all the way through, a Netherlands team that's been through so much this tournament was hanging in there, hanging on defensively, but hanging in there with France until that first part of extra time when France got the goal. And so for a tournament that has had so much sort of ups and downs and narrative changes and differing, changing in how we sort of view these teams based on their performances, we've got the four teams you kind of expected when you looked at the groups and how this was going to shake out in terms of matchups for the quarterfinals, and then how ultimately the quarterfinals played out. These were the teams you expected. It was way more difficult than it should have been, I would argue. But that's the beauty of knockout tournaments. That's the beauty of a balanced competition like this one. Once you got those top 8 teams, the teams that are all capable of beating each other, this is the result. Is you get 4 fantastic games. Should be 2 fantastic semifinals as well. I want to spend some time talking about what is happening in the Eastern Conference of Major League Soccer. But before I do that, want to acknowledge how important this penalty kick the Seattle Sounders got down a man to beat the Colorado Rapids at home was. This is the only Western Conference thing I'm going to mention, so I'll just get it out of the way first, and then we'll talk about the East. Here is Seattle's upcoming schedule. At LAFC, home against Dallas, at Atlanta, home against Real Salt Lake, at LA Galaxy, at Portland, at Orlando. That's playoff team. Difficult place to play, although teams have had success there this season because they're so banged up. Playoff team, incredibly talented team, sort of bordering on the playoffs. Playoff team that is surging, and playoff team. Those 2 points, to get them playing with 10, and to hold on to keep those 2 points after you go ahead down a man, might be the difference between the Sounders making the playoffs or not. Maybe that's extreme. They've got time to turn this around. But look at that schedule and the way they're playing. If they had built on this run they had, where I really thought they were clicking into gear and that was that, and they were going to start shooting up the Western Conference, I would feel very differently about this stretch of games coming up. But when they were struggling so much to score goals, and they go down at home to Colorado, I'm just not confident that they're actually going to take the amount of points they need to from these games, which makes the 3 they just got so much more important. And, 5 of these 7 games are on the road. If they get in by anything less than 3 points, that game to me is why. Incredibly important result within the context. And then they close with some quote unquote easier games that you would expect them to be able to manage if they're going to make the playoffs. But we're at the point in the season where when you have a stretch like the one the Sounders do coming up, that is a majority of the rest of your schedule. They don't have time to turn it around after this stretch. They have to pick these points up. And they're still looking up at the playoff line. And by the way, a Portland Timbers team that's doing what I thought the Sounders were going to do and picking it up in the summer and becoming an incredibly dangerous team heading into the postseason. So I wanted to really take a minute to highlight this because that schedule coming up is incredibly difficult, and the Sounders have to find ways to get points out of these games. They can't just try and sort of survive this and then make the run. They need to make the run now. And so maybe this is where they're going to be able to kick on and sort of turn things around again and get back to where they were a month ago, where they looked like the best team in Major League Soccer, which talent-wise, they're at least number 2. They just haven't had any kind of consistency this season. It's been a lot of bad, one really good stretch, and then some more bad here recently, but they do get the win against Colorado. We'll see if they can kick on, but they needed those points because of what's coming up next. Okay, so the Eastern Conference. Where we stand right now, I just want to highlight what we could see in this playoff race at the bottom of the East. Toronto gets Lorenzo Insigne, Federico Bernardeschi on the field, scored 4 goals in the first half. Jonathan Osorio had 1, but the other 3 were combinations between Mark-Anthony Kaye, Michael Bradley, Insigne, and Bernardeschi. Exactly what you want to see if you're Bob Bradley. So they cruise to a win. They are now 13th in the East and 6 points out of a playoff spot with the same amount of games played. So they are just straight up 6 points back. 2 wins. That's it. 13th out of the 14 teams in the Eastern Conference. The only team behind them is DC United. And they are 6 points back with this squad, who looked that good when they actually got to be on the field. Okay, so there's the Toronto aspect of it. Is can they keep this going? Is this going to click into gear immediately? That was also part of I mean, not only do you have to make this work because of all of the effort and money you have invested to bring this particular group of players together. I mean, you essentially gave away a league MVP to be able to bring in Federico Bernardeschi. So not only do you have to get this to work, but you have to get this to work immediately if you're willing to make the playoffs because of how much ground they need to make up. But that was a very good start. So Toronto is going to be intriguing and interesting, if nothing else, because of the players on the roster. Okay. So Cincinnati, Charlotte, 7th and 8th. Neither of them ever made the playoffs. This is Cincinnati's best season by far. Pat Noonan is doing a terrific job. Charlotte is hanging around. So you've got that storyline, that these are two teams right there on either side of the playoff line, trying to make it for the first time. Of course, first chance for Charlotte as an expansion team. Behind them are the Chicago Fire, who were dead until they won 3 in a row, and are now all of a sudden playing really well, and right in the thick of the playoff race. All it takes is a good, 3 weeks, good month, and you can get yourself into contention pretty quickly. And again, remember that the game before this 3-game winning streak, they were up 2-0 on the Columbus Crew until Cucho Hernandez and Derek Etienne came in and they lost 3-2. So it almost could be 4. They have been playing much, much, much better. It's not just that they're winning. They are playing really well. So they're in 9th. Managers of teams currently outside the playoffs in the East include Bruce Arena, Phil Neville, Bob Bradley, and Wayne Rooney. So you got that part of this too. I don't expect Wayne Rooney's team to be a factor. There's just too much work to do. Inter Miami is just kind of up and down. Still have no idea what to make of them. The Revs had it going for a little bit and now have fallen off again. But you've got, the two big European names in Neville and Rooney. And then you've got the two greatest American coaches ever. Bruce Arena, Bob Bradley, at this point. And then, of course, the Toronto factor of this as well. I have never been more interested in who makes the playoffs in a conference in Major League Soccer. I mean, this is, if you're Don Garber, if you're the league, this is about the best thing you could possibly ask for. Almost every team in this race has some kind of major storyline, some kind of fascinating aspect attached to them. It's big names. It's some high-profile teams. And if they get in, they're going to have to be playing really well because of what they have to do to actually make the playoffs and the amount of points they have to get and the catching up they have to do. Which makes it even more interesting heading into the postseason, where whoever's going to get those final couple spots in the East are going to have to be informed, because I can make a case for all of these teams. What happens if Toronto gets in as the 7? I mean, this is just shaping up to be something unlike MLS has ever seen. It won't deliver the drama of the playoffs because nothing can replicate that kind of environment. But this is as interested as I've ever been in the end of a regular season, because of how many teams are involved, like I said, the names, what it could mean for the playoffs. And it's another example of why I put so much value on the supporter shield. Because whether it's the Crew or it's one of these teams that's trying to come sort of from behind and make a late surge, I really think we're going to be talking about at least one, if not two, of the 5, 6, 7 seeds in the East as legit MLS Cup contenders that people are picking to go deep. And in no way, shape, or form are any of these teams that would fall into that category close to being the best over this entire season. But it doesn't matter. And these teams know that. It is all about making sure you're in form, clicking at the right time. I have no idea who it's going to be, but whoever it is, it's going to be great entertainment. It's almost guaranteed at this point just because of the teams involved in this race for the sort of final spots in the East. At the top of the East, also wanted to briefly mention it's become a two-team race for the most part. The Union and NYCFC have both won 4 in a row now. Both had bad stretches and now are both playing pretty well. Not every performance has been spectacular, but they're getting the job done. NYCFC are looking much better. They had a rough go there at the beginning of the Nick Cushing era, but they're playing like themselves again. Question is what happens, assuming Tati Castellanos leaves. But they're back to what you expect. The Union are playing much better again. These are the two teams in the East for me. I don't see anybody keeping pace with them rest of the season. And so these are the teams, in theory, you're looking at. They're going to have to deal with whatever comes out of the bottom of this conference. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about this because it is setting up for some kind of finale with international intrigue because of the people involved in it. And look, Wayne Rooney's done it before as a player at DC. I'm not holding my breath they're going to be able to become a factor in this thing. But it's not out of the question. There's a lot of work to do from a talent standpoint that is starting now. But to me, it's going to take the summer, and we're going to be talking about next season. But hey, stranger things have happened. If you're not a big MLS person, but you are sort of intrigued, you want to sort of get into the league a little bit, or you're looking for something a little bit different to pay attention to, or the other thing here, if you're an anti-MLS person, I would encourage you strongly to pay attention to what happens the rest of the way in the Eastern Conference and to watch some of these games and stay up to date with it. This is going to be tremendous television. Don't ask me what's going to happen because I got no clue. All I know is I'm going to sit back and I'm going to enjoy it. That's all we've got for today's weekend roundup. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Check out all of my content as well on Substack, touchlinetalk.substack.com. And we will see you next time.